Hi, this is Ron from POCculture.com. Dave, how are you?
Hey Ron, I don't think your real last name is Solo. Is that your real last name?
No,
Are we
it's
just
not.
starting off with a Fast and the Furious reference? Is that how we're gonna do it?
That's absolutely right. And I'm honored that you recognize the reference because
Oh
so many
man,
people don't.
no, I could do that. I could do this all day, but I know I'm not supposed to.
Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I'm so excited to chat with you. Um, from an Asian American perspective, what was the major theme and message that you wanted to communicate through the story of Shang-Chi?
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot in that movie, and have you seen the film?
I have.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So there's a big family thematic that runs through the movie, which is I think pretty familiar to a lot of Asian Americans, and sort of the expectations of family and the differences between generations inside of Asian culture. So that was one thing. And for me personally, I was very interested in exploring what the Asian American experience is. And that's challenging because my Asian American experience might not be the same as yours, which is not the same as Destin's, which is not the same as Simu's. But I did have the experiences I had, and I wanted to be able to speak to that. And I wanted to be able to present something to the masses that would seem simultaneously recognizable, but also relatable to a larger group, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I thought you really accomplished that. Now, were there other stories or films, books, anything that you kind of drew inspiration from?
I mean, yeah, this movie is probably, I mean, I'm going to do another Fast and the Furious reference. Like for me, all roads led to this, right? So I've wanted to work at Marvel my whole life. I have been writing pretty large scale superhero movies for some time now, but this was always where I wanted to be. And so for it to happen on the Asian American character and an Asian, fully Asian cast felt spectacular and awesome. And so for me, it was just my whole life suddenly was available to use. So it's my personal experiences. My favorite movie of all time is Big Trouble in Little China. So I think a lot about sort of the tone and the humor and the weirdness of that movie. While we were writing, Destin and I, one movie that I think you see a lot of in this film is Kung Fu Hustle, which we have some of the same actors, but also just that approach to humor and that approach to the world was something we hinged on a lot. And then, of course, a huge swath of martial arts films across time as well.
And what was it like working with Destin in terms of the creative process and the back and forth in developing the story? What did he bring that you really appreciated?
It was easy. I mean, my favorite thing is when I get to work with somebody and it just feels like I'm hanging out with a friend. And Destin and I bonded immediately because we wanted to do the same thing. We both understood how important this movie was and the opportunity we were being given. What was fun about it, I think, for both of us, and I'm not speaking for Destin, he might say it was terrible, but he comes from a very different film background than I do. He is known for these very introspective, empathetic character pieces that are so full of heart and amazing character work. And historically, more recently, I've been doing larger scale superhero stuff, action things. And so we were both able to sort of rely on each other to learn those skill sets, which I thought was a lot of fun. It turned out, I mean, Destin can do everything, so he didn't really need me, but it was still fun to be there.
That's great. Now, film is obviously like a constantly evolving process. Was there anything that you had in your script that you really liked that didn't make it to the final cut?
Yes.
Anything that you can reveal?
No, this is sort of always the process with this type of movie, and at Marvel, especially, I think you probably know, there's a lot of iterating that happens in Marvel. I've never worked at Pixar, but I've heard it's similar there, where it's like you're always aiming to, like, how do we beat this? How do we beat this? How do we beat this? You go until you feel like you've exhausted all options. So there were plenty of things that were tried along the way that didn't make it, and they didn't make it for a reason. And some of them maybe will show up again down the line.
Now, as an Asian American creator, there's like this almost this burden of representation when it comes to a movie like this.
Yeah.
How did you approach this project, managing the both like the burden, but also kind of embracing the excitement and challenge?
That was the hardest part for me, was right out of the gate when I got hired. I was so thrilled, and then immediately I started overthinking. Oh no, now I have to write a movie that speaks to every Asian person that's ever lived in the history of the world. And once my family caught wind of it, once my Chinese family caught wind of this movie, I started hearing from them in a real aggressive way. And so I spent a couple of weeks freaking out, and then I just had to put it away and say, all I can do is write a story that I think is relatable and that's honest and true to the experience. It won't make everybody in the world happy, but hopefully it won't make everybody in the world angry either. And that's the best I can do.
Absolutely. Well, it made this movie watcher very happy. Thank you so much for taking the time, and congratulations.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Take care.